I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my featured author of the month of February, award winning and best selling author, no other than Miss Raven Oa.
Greetings and salutations. I'm coming to you from a very rainy Seattle area, and I'm a spec fic author and happy to be here.
Yes, we are the same zone. We are raining at the same time.
And
Happy.
possibly some snow in the weekend.
Yes, the same. Oh, so Miss Raven, what will be your second book that you will feature on Book 101?
We're going to talk about Class M Exile, which is my science fiction novella in a universe with some more books coming.
Oh, nice. So, what is the central theme of Class M Exile, and
You
how
know,
does it shape the story?
Class M Exile was kind of an accident when it happened. I was at a writing workshop with other writers learning my craft with Connie Willis as the instructor. And when we were there, we were learning how to take events from our personal life and give them kind of a speculative fiction twist and how to um, take something like that and create something new from it. And so for me, I was reflecting back to my time growing up in the South in the United States, where there was a lot of prejudice and a lot of hate towards people who were different. And I took a particular scene and turned it on its head and ended up writing Class M Exile, which is really a look at prejudice through the viewpoint of an alien's point of view.
So, Miss Raven, how does the protagonist's exile impact their character development throughout the book?
Well, there's two main characters in it, one of which is an alien. He studies humanity in university. They think that humanity is extinct, and so he basically thinks that all of humanity is represented best by old westerns. So he watches a lot of westerns, and he basically thinks everybody is out to be John Wayne. And he thinks that until he actually meets a human. Humans are not exactly extinct, but they're definitely rare. And the exile in the title is the human in this story. She is considered an exile. Everybody's afraid of humanity. And their discovery about what it is to be friends, but also what prejudice looks like in different points of view and different species, alien versus humanity, what all that looks like is part of their adventure in space.
So, what role does class distinction play in the novel, and how does it affect the characters?
Well, I mean, humanity is responsible for a war, a massive interspace war. And because we tend to want to go conquer everything in front of us, even if that means killing everybody to get there, we kind of do that in space in this particular future. And Mel, who's the human, as a consequence of that, she's hunted. Humanity is hunted. And so she has to hide a lot and hide who she is. And, all she wants to do is find her family who she's been separated from and find her home, find Earth again, see if it still exists. And Eerl, our alien in this book, he is there to help her do that. And he has very particular ideas about what it is to be a good person, as does she, and that there's some conflict in that. And so, her class, I guess, is again, it's like a minority class. It's this distinction of lesser than and not necessarily seen as a good person, and that definitely impacts her ability to have her own agency.
Miss Ravenel, thank you so much for sharing Class and Exile to the world. So, how did you build the world of Class M Exile, and what makes it unique?
Well, I mean, the nice thing when you're writing science fiction is, even if you're writing potentially far ahead in the future, it's our world. It's not necessarily a land with, magical creatures, or there's a different set of world building in that. And so while I had to think about how the government would change with space travel and with the discovery of other species and aliens out there, um, there wasn't as much world building as I had to do with something like A Maskin's Blood. Um, but part of, I think, what makes it unique is the idea that the whole story is filtered from a narrow point of view of this alien Eerl. Most of the time when we see aliens versus humans, it's always humans are good and it's human point of view. I kind of went the opposite. I wanted something that was looking from an alien's perspective of what he thought of humanity and what prejudice would look like from that point of view.
What are some of the key conflicts in the book and how are they resolved?
Well, I mean, obviously, you've got the idea of humans as conquerors and evil beings, which makes things difficult for Mel. You have conflict between Mel and Earl because even though he wants to help her, again, he has his own prejudices to overcome about what he thinks about humanity and the assumption that they're all evil. Um, you also have the conflict of the entire universe being against humanity and thinking that we just want to go shoot everything and kill everything, which unfortunately isn't too far from the truth sometimes. So there's that just enough truth to it that's believable. Um, and then there's the conflict inside of Mel of once she finds her family, if she does, what then? They're still on the run, they're still hunted. How is she going to survive?
So, Miss Raven, how does Class M explore the concept of identity and belonging?
Well, I mean, we all want to belong and we all want to have some sort of kinship with somebody. um, Mel, again, looking for her family that she's been separated from since childhood. She has this longing to know who she is. Is she just this random human who's being hunted, or is she a part of something bigger than herself? And I think that that's a story that just about everybody can identify with. We all make our own families, whether they're chosen or blood relationships, and that is a common theme in my stories. And again, it's a common theme in this story too.
What are the protagonist's main strengths and weaknesses and how they affect their journey?
Well, I mean, I think Earl, his strength is that it takes a lot to make him afraid. He's a very brave character. His flaw is that Earl has this moral compass that says lying is the worst thing you can do. So if you lie to someone, he thinks that makes you just the epitome of evil. And so being lied to is something that he will not do with well. And that's definitely something that causes conflict in the story. Mel, on the other hand, her strength is survival. She has survived a very long time on her own. Um, but her weakness is that she is in some ways a little too trusting.
So, how do secondary characters contribute to the protagonist's development?
Well, the opening scene of Class M Exile was re-envisioned from my own history, where there was a new student and people freaked out because she was very different. And I reimagined that. And so when Earl sets foot on this planet that's considered like a tourist trap, a big planet of everybody shopping and doing touristy things, when he sees a human, all of the background characters that are on this planet, they freak out. They are running and stampeding, trying to get away from this human because, oh my God, the world's going to end. Um, and so you see the secondary characters are really just kind of background, but they add a lot of comic effect as well as world building to what's there, because they're there to kind of set the scene, set the stage.
What is the significance of the title Class M Exile?
Well, it for me, it's a nod to Star Trek. Uh, Class M is the designation of the planet Earth. It is a planet that is able to sustain life as we know it. And so any planet that we find in space now that looks like it could be, I guess, a Goldilocks planet, one of the planets where we could settle, is typically designated Class M. Um, and so for me, Mel is a human. She is of Earth. I wanted her, yes, she's an exile, but I wanted her designation as a human to be at the forefront of this story. It's important to what's going on in the story. Yet I also, again, wanted to nod to Star Trek, as I grew up on Star Trek. I grew up on the old sci-fi, and this was kind of my tribute to it.
So, Miss Raven, how does Class M address themes of oppression and survival?
Well, I mean, as humans, there's a little bit of, it's wild to me to think that when we go out and we look at space, the belief that we are the best that's out there and the only thing that's out there. There's a lot of space out there. I think that there's definitely life out there. If it is intelligent life at all, it's probably doing a really good job of hiding from us, because again, we have not done a great job on Earth with each other or with our own planet. I mean, I would be hiding from us too. Not to say that hiding in a bad way. Like, I think it would be more of a, we're smarter than you and we don't want anything to do with you. No thanks. And so I guess, when thinking about that, there's a conceit in that. And I didn't want Class M Exile to focus too much on the idea that humanity is perfect. I really wanted to kind of get into the gritty underbelly of that, the conquistador idea. I'm not sure if that answered your question. I kind of lost where your question was, but
Yes, it is the grittiness of human being. So, what role does technology or science fiction elements play in the storyline?
well, I will admit that I am more a soft science fiction author. That means I tend to focus more on the cultural aspect of science fiction rather than getting into, let me explain to you a treatise on how space travel works. That's not really that's not the focus. The focus is on what happens when characters are out in space. But, you know, technology is a means for Eerl to take Mel and take her out into space and try to find Earth and try to find her home. Space travel allows for that. If we didn't have space travel, then the whole story kind of falls apart.
Certainly. How does as the author, how do you use suspense and tension to keep the reader engaged?
Well, I mean, again, everything's focused through an alien perspective, and I think that in itself is a nice hook to hook readers. But I've done a good job of making sure that there's room for the characters to breathe and grow through the story. And I think when you do that, it gives the tension that you need. Because if you're invested in the characters, then when something bad happens to the characters, oh gosh, I got to keep reading to find out what happens next to Eerl, what happens next to Mel. Is Mel going to find her family? Is Eerl going to, like, fall off a cliff or something? There's a lot of tension that's intentional through the character development.
So, Miss Raven, what are the some most surprising or unexpected moments in the Class M? Without the spoilers.
Yeah, without spoilers, that's hard. Um, I think the unexpected is that I can give this little tiny spoiler. When the stampede happens on Bay-zar, which is the tourist planet, and Bay-zar is a play off the word bazaar, not just bizarre like weird, but also like a bazaar, marketplace. Think of places in Asia where you go and buy things. Um, when everybody's afraid, there is a particular alien race that is very warrior-like, that is not just humanity, a different one. They land on Bazaar with the intention of causing chaos, and when that happens, there the people of Bazaar find themselves kind of ignoring the fact that there's a human there. It's almost like the enemy over here is a distraction enough that I'm suddenly united over here with this human that I didn't really want to be friends with, but we're going to pretend for a minute so that we all get out of this alive. That's an unexpected thing that happens. There, Class of Exile is kind of one unexpected thing after another, so it's hard to go into that without spoiling too much.
Definitely. So, how does the novel explore the idea of justice and morality?
Well, again, Earl has a unique idea of morality. You know, lying is not a good thing. We all tell little white lies as a comfort. When somebody says, "Does this make me look ugly?" Oh no, it makes you look great. I mean, we all do that, right? But to him, that is a horrible thing to do. Uh,
Mm.
it's worth getting in a fight over. Those are fighting words to him. And so, there's definitely a different sense of morality in the book. And you know, justice is always an important theme or element in my stories. I'm autistic and I have a very strong sense of what I think justice should be. I'm a big fan of everybody getting justice, having their moment in court, having their moment to, make things right. And so that comes through in all of the stories that I write.
So, Miss Raven, what would be your advice for those people out there who want to write their novel?
You know, we talked about this a couple times, the idea of telling your story, of being true to yourself, of trying to write as often as you can, finding those moments, but also, you know, try something new. Don't be afraid to flip something on its head. And, yeah, everybody's like, oh gosh, romantasy is the big trope that's right now. And like, friends to lovers and all those kinds of things. What happens if you flip that on its head? What happens if, okay, you write something that's, romantasy, but you're like, what if they're lovers to enemies? What if we go the other way? Like, try things out. Sometimes you surprise yourself and you end up with something like Class of Exile instead.
Yes, something unique.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows you will become Miss Raven Oa. So stop procrastinating, people. Share your talents to the world. So, Miss Raven, in Class M, what emotional impact does the book have on the reader and why?
Well, I think that sense of trying to find where we belong and who we are as a people, but also as individuals, it's quite a journey. And I think that anyone reading this is going to be taken on that kind of journey. You're going to ask questions about what you think it means to be human. And I think with the way that the story ends, you will be asking questions again about your own preconceived notions of what it is to be human.
Certainly. How does the setting influence the plot and character interactions?
Well, I mean, most of the most of the book takes place in space and travel, um, particularly on a small ship. But there are different planets that are landed on, and then of course there's Bay-zar, the planet you start off on, and I put a lot of time and energy into developing this planet and thinking about, what would it be like if you went to a planet that was basically like a big Disney World or a big marketplace where you can literally buy anything. Eerl makes a comment early on that, you can buy hot dogs, you can buy ship parts, but you can even buy a genuine religion. It's like
Mm,
the idea being that no matter where you went in this planet, that it's just nothing but shops of buying everything that exists in the universe. That would be both really cool as a shopper and maddening, I think. And I liked the way that was pictured in my head, and I had to write it out into the story.
definitely, you can buy dark matter and dark energy together.
Right.
That'd be awesome. So, Ms. Raven, what are some of the social political messages in the Class M?
Well, you know, again, the assumption and the conceit that humanity is the brightest, the best. That's not a really good conceit to have. It's not a good attitude to have. Um, so there's messages about that, because if you go from the macro to the microcosm, looking at our desire and our need to conquer everything, that's how we get into situations like the United States is finding itself in right now, where we think we can just go out and take Greenland and the Panama Canal, and it's like, no, that's not how this works. Um, you know, even I mean, this was published in 2016, I think, and that was like way before current political things. Um, but we were always there. As a species, we keep wanting to go and conquer the other, and tamp out people who are different from ourselves. And I don't like that. That's not really a good way to be a good person, a good citizen of the earth. We should be taking care of each other. We should be taking care of our planet. So
Yes,
those are the kinds of lessons and themes that run through stories like this.
Ms. Raven Oa. Very well articulated. Thank you so much for sharing your Class M. And I remembered also Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America.
Right? Like we own an entire ocean. Oh my gosh.
Yes. So, how does Class M compare to other science fiction books with similar themes?
Well, I mean, I think that it compares to a lot of the soft sci-fi that's out there that's a little more modern and really focuses on this society and the sociological aspects of things rather than picking apart the technology or um, the hard science portion of it. Um, I think it's similar in some ways to a lot of the works that like Rachel Bach writes or Connie Willis, where you're really like, I love Connie Willis, but time travel, probably not a thing. However, she uses that in her science fiction. She's a grandmaster and she writes a lot about time travel. But the focus isn't about the time travel, it's about the characters and the relationships and how that impacts culture and society. That's more my style in terms of my sci-fi.
Definitely. So, what lessons can be learned from the protagonist's experiences?
Well, number one, probably don't lie to Eerl. That would be bad. um, but on a bigger scheme of things, be yourself. Don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to try new things and to go out there and live your life, because in theory we might only have one life, and so this is it. Make use of it, make good time with it.
Seize your day, people.
Yeah.
So, Miss Raven, before we wrap up our discussion, what are your short term and long term goals in writing?
uh Short term, definitely want to wrap up some of the revisions and stuff that I've been working on. I've got a lot of books that are very close to being ready to send off to the editor. Long term, I think doing more podcasts like this, more events like this, these are fun. I love having the moment to talk more in depth about my works. I've been on a lot of podcasts, and a lot of them, they ask a lot of surface questions, and that's okay too, new audience. But sometimes it is nice to be able to spend, 30 minutes really diving into one work rather than the entirety of my works.
Certainly, you're most welcome to come back anytime and let's talk about all your books. So, to wrap up our discussion, how does the book's ending shape the overall message or theme of the story?
Just really, if we are going to go out and explore space, if we're really going to go out there and look at the possibility of other life, maybe we don't treat everything out there the way we have treated the citizens of Earth. Not just humans, but the animals that live here too, the plants that live here. I mean, we are not great stewards of this planet. Maybe we should take some lessons from that. And that has absolutely shaped every story I tell in space.
Definitely. Miss Raven Oak, award-winning and best-selling author. My future author of the month of February. Thank you so much for sharing all your books to the world. And can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Sure, head over to www.ravenoak.net. Once you're over there, you can see all of my books and all of my stories in various anthologies, links to places where you can buy those books, including stuff signed by me. And you can hit up my socials on there as well. And I'll see you out there in space.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Raven Oak because if you support her, as I said, more empowering science fiction to come. So, Miss Raven, thank you for your time.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
More to come, people. See you soon.